Hey kinfolk, this is Brian with the Bearded Axe, and this episode is all about those shelves on that yurt. It's been a while since I've talked about the yurt and done anything about the yurt, and well, this footage is about a year old. So this is how I did it. So what I'm doing here is I just put a stake in the ground and I'm drawing a line about 9 foot long, because ultimately that yurt is 18 feet wide. So I need a 9 foot radius in order to get the right radius so I can trace that onto a board so I can get that curve just right. So right now I'm just putting out an outline on the ground where I want to put that board, just like that. I want to, right where my hand's at, I want to put that right at the very edge of that line. And of course the bottom corners of that curve need to be on that line as well. And cutting this out with a jigsaw. This is going to be a bit long because you're cutting along the end grain, and that's just going to be difficult. And how I attached it were pocket hole screws. Now this is a Craig's jig. I can't remember. I think I paid maybe $30 or $40 for this. There are better ones out there. Say Harbor Freight has a really nice one that clamps, and I put about 6 of these into this shelf. 3 on one side, 3 on the other. The reason why I didn't put it all on one side or whatever is because it gets thin on either end, and so you have to put it on the thicker end so you can attach it, just like how you see there. Certain ends of each piece are going to be too thin. You want to make sure you clamp this down because Craig screws like to walk on you and it's going to be uneven. I think I used 1.5 inches on some and 1-inch screws on others. Every time you change positions, you want to reposition your clamp just to make sure that you're keeping everything straight, aligned, and level and straight. Now the very edge there, it looks real thin, so I just used some brad nails to keep it together. And of course, one side is done, and now you got to work on the other side. Make sure you clean up any glue that ends up getting squeezed out. So I made 2 of these, and I wanted to make sure that I had the right diameter. So I didn't have to just take the other one back out there and retrace it. I just used the one that I just cut as a template. And this is a, I want to call it a block vise. You can put the block vise down, and then you can clamp the block vise to the bench, and you can get all sorts of clamping options with that. So the belt sander I use to help shape it, because of course you're not going to cut a perfectly straight line or curve, and that helps kind of smooth things out and make it look nice and pretty. You could use a random orbital sander like that, but a belt sander does way better. It's just much more aggressive, and I think I used an 80 grit. 80 grit or 60 grit does pretty well. And now these holes, you want to drill about 3 of these holes. I think this is just over 1/4 inch because I have 1/4 inch rope that's going to be going right through those. And that's what's going to hold it to the wall itself. And of course, I'm going to chamfer the edges. You could sand this over with, say, a belt sander or a random orbital sander. Either will do just fine, but you want to just smooth off those edges. You don't want anybody getting cut or getting splinters. So you want to tie one end of the rope to the actual wall, pull it through the bottom, and you want to tie it to the top just like that. And you're going to see how this gets supported here real soon here. It's better shown rather than actually explained. And so when you tie this, you want to make sure that the bottom piece is pointing kind of inwards towards the shelf, and the other one diagonally outwards. And the middle one, you just want to keep it straight. And you need 3 of these. You could do more if you're thinking about carrying more weight, but this actually held quite a lot of weight. There's a lot of bottles and cups and whatnot. And so once you're satisfied with how that thing just sets up, you want to seal it up. I chose a polyurethane sealant. This stuff dries real fast and it looks great. It doesn't discolor the wood at all. And ultimately, this was put on by a foam roller, and I sealed it up with that food saver bag, and it just keeps well. I mean, I've had stuff in those bags for like a year. And so, yeah, 3 layers should do you pretty good. And you want to make sure that you use a Scotch-Brite pad in between each layer to knock all the high points down and smooth it out. Overall, I really like this build. This is probably the easiest part about this whole Yurt build. And it was some of the most useful things that I made. And it kept my stuff off the ground, kept it from getting wet or dirty, getting all sorts of critters in them. And it held up under a lot of weight. And I'm really happy. You could stack these 2 or 3 high on each wall, and you can have these all across your yurt. And yeah, I think this is an extremely useful idea. And yeah, I would highly encourage it. If you're going to make a yurt, get these walls, get this wall system. You don't necessarily have to make them 8 foot wide, of course. You can make them 1 foot or whatever. And so yeah, that's basically it for this build. And if you guys like this episode, then consider buying me a coffee on my Ko-Fi. And if you want to support me more in the long term, then consider being a part of my Patreon team. There's all sorts of great benefits that you guys could take advantage of. For example, early access or a general discount to my Etsy shop. And that perfectly segues into my third option, which is the most popular one. People love my Etsy shop. So head on over to my Etsy shop and consider buying a few of my things, my merch, and that helps support the channel. It helps me buy better cameras, microphones, editing platforms, materials, gas, and event fees, and all this stuff, so I can just keep making videos for you guys, so it's not such a financial burden to me. And well, that's all I got for you today, nerds. I'm going to send you home with a be humble, be helpful, and be honorable. Thanks for watching.